He was 9 years old, and his name was Walter Collins. It was March 10th, 1928. Walter Collins was on his way to see a movie. He left his home wearing a lumber jacket, brown corduroy trousers, black Oxfords, and a gray cap. The last time anyone saw him was around 5 p.m. that afternoon, when a neighbor spotted him at the corner of Pasadena Avenue and North Avenue 23 in Lincoln Heights, Los Angeles, California. Christine Collins, the boy's mother, had given him the money to see that movie. She was also the one to report him missing 5 days later, on March 15th. The Los Angeles Police Department received tips from all over the state. Some came in from as far away as San Francisco and Oakland, California. For those who aren't familiar, that's about 380 miles northwest of the Collins home in Los Angeles. One tip came from a gas station in Glendale, a little over 9 miles away. Richard Struthers, a gas station attendant, reported seeing a dead boy wrapped in newspaper in the back of a car when what he described as a foreign couple stopped to ask for directions. When they left the gas station, a man named C.V. Stanley followed the couple. He stated that they stopped for a few moments in front of the police station, but he lost them as they sped out of town. More tips came in later about a couple traveling across the state with a boy who was begging them to let him go. When shown a photograph of Walter Collins, both Struthers and Stanley confirmed he was the boy they had seen wrapped in newspaper in that car. At the time of his disappearance, Walter's father, Francis Dunn, was serving time in Folsom State Prison for robbery. He worked in the prison cafeteria, but his real job was to report his fellow inmates' infractions. Knowing that, it was very possible he had made several enemies, and Francis theorized that his son's disappearance was an attempt by former inmates to exact their revenge on him. LAPD searched for Walter Collins in the Lincoln Park Lake, as well as the surrounding area for months without success. At the time, LAPD was already under investigation for several corruption scandals, and this inability to locate Walter was frankly embarrassing. It goes without saying that Police Chief James Davis was under a lot of pressure to solve this case. What made matters worse is that this turned out to be one of many missing child cases from the area. In February, prior to Walter's disappearance, the headless body of a Latino boy was found in La Puente. Later, on May 16, 1928, the Winslow brothers, 10-year-old Nelson and 12-year-old Lewis, were reported missing on their way home to Pomona. As the search for Walter Collins continued, the Illinois police picked up a boy who told them his name was Arthur Hutchins. He initially stated that his father had abandoned him, so they placed him with a temporary family. Eventually, though, he told the police that his real name was Walter Collins from Los Angeles, and he was only avoiding their questions to protect his father. From there, the Illinois police contacted California police, then sent photographs of the boy and, later, the boy himself. When California authorities contacted Christine Collins, they showed her photos of the boy from Illinois. But Christine knew immediately that this boy was not her son. However, Captain J.J. Jones convinced Collins to try him out for a while, and she took the boy home. 3 weeks later, she and the boy returned. Christine brought with her Walter's dental records and signed statements from people who knew Walter. None were convinced that this was him. She told the police, quote, "Yes, he looks like Walter, and in some ways acts like my son, but still, I'm not certain about it. You see, Walter was quiet and well-behaved. He always called me mother. This child calls me ma, and at times, he is hard to handle. I certainly hope that he is my son, but somehow, I just can't bring myself to believe it." End quote. In response to this, police performed a series of tests to prove this child was in fact Walter Collins. These included things like having the child find his way back home from memory, as well as bringing in Walter's pet dog, who seemed to recognize the boy as its owner. Christine was still not convinced. In response, Captain Jones accused Collins of trying to pawn her child off on the state, calling her a cruel-hearted woman and a fool. On September 8, 1928, the LAPD had Christine Collins committed at Los Angeles County General Hospital on a Code 12, a term used when police wanted to get rid of troublemakers and inconveniences by throwing them in the psychiatric wards. As a reminder, The LAPD was already under investigation for corruption scandals when Walter was first taken. And as for the boy from Illinois who claimed to be Walter Collins, he eventually confessed that he was not the missing child when a handwriting expert determined that the boy's writing samples did not match Walter's. His real name was Arthur Hutchins Jr., a 12-year-old from Iowa who ran away from home after his mother had passed away. He had initially told police that he knew nothing of Walter Collins. However, when he saw how much he resembled Walter, Arthur realized he could get away from his father and cruel stepmother, and he changed his story. This also meant that he would get a free trip all the way to California, where he hoped to meet the silent film star and king of cowboys, known as Tom Mix. 10 full days passed after Arthur's confession before Christine Collins was released from the psych ward. She sued the LAPD and won $10,800 in court for false imprisonment. But Captain J.J. Jones never paid her, though he was suspended a few months before being permanently reinstated. Police never found conclusive physical evidence, but they believed Walter was a victim of the Wineville chicken coop murders. Although the remains of the earlier mentioned Winslow brothers, Nelson and Lewis, were found buried near the serial killer's chicken coop, Walter was still missing. 36 years passed, and Christine held out hope that somehow he was still alive before dying in 1964 in Los Angeles. She never found her one and only son, Walter Collins. Thank you, dear listeners, for coming with me on this journey and listening to the story of Walter Collins. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, follow The Mysterious Podcast on Spotify. The Mysterious Podcast was written, edited, and produced by me, H.W. Spears. Stay safe out there.